No Purpose Without Love is a podcast dedicated to helping you find purpose through the relentless pursuit of God's love. The unfortunate reality is that we are born into a world that does not know God. Since God is synonymous with love, to be without God is to be without love. This podcast aims to bring light to the dark areas of your life so that you gain a deeper connection with love as a person, more affectionately known as Jesus. Jesus spoke often about the kingdom of God, and in the kingdom, love is the why behind everything that exists, including our purpose. I am your host, Dave Garesso, and my hope and prayer is that you will experience the overwhelming love of God so powerfully that you will become love to a world that is still very much without love. God has given me the ability to provide the spark, but he wants to fan into flames the purpose that he has for you, which always leaves a trail of breadcrumbs leading right back to our Father and Creator. Please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new episodes as they're released. Now let's get fired up. Well, hello and welcome to the No Purpose Without Love podcast. I'm your host, Dave Garesso. Here we learn to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with our lives. Today, I have with me my guest, Ben Blondie. He is the founder of the Give Hope Project, which is a for-profit social enterprise with the vision of giving hope to the hopeless. He's leading a movement that is transforming overwhelmed people who are stuck in the daily grind, unable to even think about a bigger picture or better life, elevate their vision, and create a new life centered around the fulfillment of their purpose. He helps people to elevate their thinking and consciousness, helping them to see the big picture so they can clarify their vision and achieve it. He's worked in corporate America, nonprofits, and as an entrepreneur. He has experience in developing new leaders, building high-performing teams, and problem solving. And he's been successful over the years in building strong client relationships, P&L Management, piloting KPIs and new operating standards, budgeting and forecasting, and contract negotiations. He currently resides in Smyrna, Georgia, with his wife of almost 20 years, Elizabeth, and he has 4 children. And he says when he is not working, he enjoys a round of bad golf or being outdoors in the mountains or at the beach, which we're going to get to see today. Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here. Really excited to have this discussion with you, and thank you for the great introduction.
Absolutely. And so for those watching, we do have a little bit of technical choppiness. So if we cut in and out, it's okay. We're working through it. All right. And we're doing our best to hold it together. If Ben drops off video, that's why. But let's just kick this off, Ben, with telling us the story of how you started the Give Hope Project. This sounds like an amazing organization. It's going to bring a lot of hope to people. What's the story behind it?
So it was kind of this thing where I was working just in general in life. I was talking to a lot of people who, it started out a lot talking with people about career development and kind of what they were needing in life. And it really developed into, instead of just talking about career development, right, we started talking about what they wanted out of life. And what that looked like was, for some people, it's like, I want to have a healthier life. I want to spend more time with my family. I want, so we were well past work at that point. And it really became about helping people create a personal vision. Some of this I was doing in the workplace. Some of this I was doing with people I was meeting, friends, things like that. People were just like, there's got to be something better than just going to work every day and then coming home and, feeling stuck and unfulfilled. And, so for me, I just had, I'll call it a gifting of being able to really listen to people, stop and hear them where they were in that moment, right? And being able to come to a center point of, well, here's what I hear you saying. And what does that look like to get there? And for people who said I wanted to either lose weight or be healthier, it's like, all right, well, don't, go join a gym 3 days. And if you don't want to take a walk, then maybe you shouldn't join the gym right away. Just start building habits towards something that's healthier and better. And, and in some cases, there are people I worked with, as you sit there and talk to them about it, what they really wanted to do and what they're passionate about doing wasn't going to be involved with the company they were at in a couple of years. So it was really, being open to having those conversations of helping people get to where they really wanted to be in life.
And so this evolved then to creating this organization. Now, just all these different conversations sort of led to that. Is that how it, what made you go, you know what, we really need to have this awesome organization called the Give Hope Project.
Yeah, it really became like, this is my gifting, this is my talent. What does that look like kind of as I go out and start doing this, separate from corporate, Ben, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And beginning to, help people and organizations to really kind of figure out what they're about and what they want to do, and stepping through into that vision and, that idea of hope. It really comes from acknowledging that there's a vision and that there's something bigger that I get to work towards, and bigger that people can, it's helping them elevate their thinking, their consciousness, helping them realize that there's a bigger picture to their life.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things I pick up off of what you're saying, Ben, is you saw opportunity where a lot of people see drudgery. A lot of people look at that and just say, hey, this is just my lot in life. You took that as an opportunity and you said, why don't we create something that gives people the same hope that I truly desire to have in my own life? And you turned it into something that now others can benefit from. And so that's pretty awesome. Did I lose you, Ben?
Dave, are you there?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So how has being a follower of Jesus helped you on your journey so far?
Hold on. It's reconnecting. Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just said, how has being a follower of Jesus impacted your journey so far?
So being a follower of Jesus, in reality, I probably would never have, one, developed the Give Hope Project, but second, it kind of changed. It did change my entire life, my marriage, my family, the direction we were heading. It changed every bit of everything that we do. For me, it became, I became a follower of Jesus at 30. And it was at a point where my wife and I, we had realized we had become more roommates than husband and wife. It was this feeling that, we were at, height of careers. We were coming off promotions, bonuses. And so for us, it was really, and for me in particular, it was like this humbling moment that's continued to evolve right over this time of what it's like to be made more into the image of Jesus, being more aligned with the Holy Spirit, and really just embracing what that looks like and what that, has in store for us in life. And it's been completely different than anything I've ever imagined my life would look like.
Yeah, and I admire your transparency, Ben, because you're sharing some things that really, even, you and I were talking before we started this, how similar our lives are and how we're in similar seasons, all the way back to even the beginning, right? How it started for you is similar to how it started for me. But the reason why that's important, right, the transparency of it, is it shows you that we're not alone, right? Like, you're going through stuff, I'm going through stuff, and there's all these areas where maybe some of the details are different, but we cross paths. And as we begin to share those stories with others, we end up providing hope, because as we overcome, we get to help bring others along with us. And not to mention, there's a whole other generation or two or three coming up after us that are looking to see the hope when they begin to go through some of the same things that we're going through.
Well, right. I think there's that piece, right, of not only what our family, friends, and people like that get to see us go through, our kids, right, but it's that feeling, and I think my wife can verbalize this a lot better than I can, but that feeling of when you really are sitting with people that you get to understand there are more people out there like me and who feel the same as I do and are going through similar things. But many times, it's kind of an isolation piece where I'm all alone and I'm the only one dealing with this. And it's coming to that realization of I'm not alone, but then also stepping into it and embracing those people that are in community and like-minded situations and really coming together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's kind of shift gears a little bit and move into this talk about vision, right? Vision is something that you talk a lot about, something that you really believe in, especially this time of year. Everybody's creating vision boards, setting new visions, setting new resolutions, if you will. Why is creating vision, especially for a family, why is that so important?
So, vision, first off, you need a guiding place, right? You need to know where the ship's going to go. And we can go off on a lot of different directions with just that picture of the ship heading in a direction in a port. But if we don't have a vision, then we're really just kind of going through the day-to-day. We're going through emotions. I hate resolutions. I'm not a big fan of that.
And for years, don't get me wrong, I had goals, over the last several, that mindset has really shifted to, what is your vision? Because if you don't have a vision, then what are you setting goals toward? Then you're just doing things because you either think it's a good idea or you think it's because someone else told you it was a good idea, or, and we lose who we are, right? When we're not really centered on what that vision is, that hope, of what is better out there for us. What is my gifting? What is my skills? What is my passion towards those things? Because like I said, otherwise I'm just going through motions, or I'm working towards what someone else thought was a great idea. And it's like I really say this to a lot of people now, is be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of
somebody
who
else.
Others think you should, somebody else, or who other people think you should be. Like, be a first-rate version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So what is this vision, is the idea of vision singular, or are there many parts to it?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to think about vision, I mean, there's David, right? And then there's the aspects of David. Like, what do you want your family to look like? What do you want your career, business, professional side to be? And again, they're intertwined ideally. And again, this is a whole other topic. I mean, where are we sitting from an authenticity side, right? Because normally we have corporate Ben, family Ben, church Ben, whatever. And in reality, if we're really being on an authentic self, those are all the same. And, people recognize you between all of them because you're really sitting at your most authentic level, which is, again, a whole other conversation for another day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that topic. That could be its own episode, Ben.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, we could go we could go completely on authenticity and be like a whole day of it.
Absolutely. So what, do you, in your experience though, as you talk about these different aspects of vision, do you find that those that you work with take the time usually to work through those different aspects, or is it something that we kind of just work through or on autopilot?
Well, I think in a lot of ways it's easy to be autopilot, right? I once saw this line, someone drew it, on a far left is despair, on the far right is hope, right? And when you're sitting in a place of despair, you just don't ever believe it'll get better.
No.
And when you're sitting in a place of hope, you're kind of in this like, okay, I'm maybe in a tough season, or I may be going through this right now, but there's something better out there, right?
Yeah.
When you sit in between those two places, it's almost the worst place to be, right? When you sit between despair and hope, you're really in this bad spot because you're kind of in this, just for lack of a better term, a limbo, and you're not really working towards things getting better. You don't necessarily have a belief that it's getting better, but you go, well, I'm not miserable and I don't hate my life. And I, don't think like it's just going to be this wandering, terrible thing forever. Like, I'm just going to get to the end and that's it. And I'm, and again, that's just not what we were created for, and, what our lives were intended to look like, to just get to the end and survive.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's a gold nugget right there. I've never really thought about it that way, sitting in between the despair and the hope, right? And, we live in this time where we tend to focus on the extremes on both sides, right? But usually where most people lie is somewhere in the middle, right? And to your point, that's a hard place to be. And that goes along with the next question I was going to ask you, is what's the pain, right? If we don't seek the vision, if we don't clarify those goals for our lives, what's the pain? And it sounds like you just described what that pain is. It's just sort of this mundane grind.
Well, it's a mundane grind. You're stuck, is what I call stuck in the daily. Mm-hmm. You wake up, it's Groundhog's Day. Everything's the same. You're going to go do what you do and come home, and it's going to be the same. And you're going to go get through your day and spend time with the family. And there's not wrong with those things. There's nothing bad in those things. But you're like, there's never this belief of it's going to get better, or there's more to this, to this life than what I'm experiencing day to day. And it's just going to be like this for another 25, 30, whatever, however many years.
Yeah. It almost sounds like hopelessness.
Yeah, you're somewhere. There's this, it's this, like I said, it's this weird middle area between despair and hope, where you just kind of go, all right, this is life and this is how it's going to be. And
yeah. So there's some out there though, right, that struggle with the idea of creating vision. They're like, I'm not sure what I even want. I'm not sure what I'm gifted at. I'm not sure where my talent lies, or this is all I've ever known, right? And I can't really foresee a future that's different than this. There's this struggle. It's almost like a healthy tension, right? Where I know that I need to create this, but I'm not sure how. What would you say to those that are struggling in that way?
Well, see, and this is what I tell people: you got to kind of disconnect, not from life, not from your family, but you got to go find some space. Go sit with Jesus and really say, what is it that you have for me, right? Am I in alignment with you, right? Are the desires of my heart the desires that you have for me? And from there, it's building something and putting together the pieces of what am I gifted at, right? What do I like to do? What do I want people, how do I want my eulogy to go? And aligning those pieces. I mean, and let's face it, I mean, people are a lot of times scared to take that kind of stuff to God, but Jesus used to ask people all the time, like especially the people who wanted to be healed, what is it that you want? Or what would you want me to do? And I mean, God's okay with us questioning him and asking him. And
yeah, you brought up another topic there that could easily be its own episode. I knew this was going to happen when you and I talked, Ben. I feel like we could have 6 episodes at least between the two of us. I love this stuff. So you bring up an interesting point there. What is it about going to God with what we want that makes people feel like they can't do it?
That I wouldn't. I mean, there's probably so many different reasons. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's a double-edged sword, right? There's I want to go tell God what I want, but then there's the real question of, God, what is it you want from me, right? I mean, there's a huge alignment piece with vision. I mean, because I could create my own vision. My goal is to go do X, and I want to go be a billionaire, and I could go chase after that. But along the way, I mean, I may burn my relationships with my family. Who knows? Like, right? I get to the end. I don't have anything else, and I got $1 billion. If I haven't been in alignment with what God has for me, there's so much more that I'm missing out on in life that I could have had otherwise.
Yeah. And, one thing I know about these visions that we create and the work that we do is it always centers around the service of people in some way. And if you think about any job, any work that anyone does out there, in one way, shape, or form, it always serves people in some way, for better or for worse. Go for it.
Right. And so it'll be 9 years this summer. 9 years ago, I got laid off. I had left corporate America. I went to work at a church, and I was working on business projects and community outreach and a number of things. Well, they went through transition, and essentially I was a financial layoff just due to their financial situation. And as I was dealing with that layoff, which, by the way, was the only time in my life that I'd been on the opposite side of that table. I'd laid people off in my life. I had never been laid off. It was nothing like I imagined it felt like, and it was absolutely terrible. So it was also a learning lesson for the rest of my career. But, really, as I was coming through all that, right, what I really saw was, people are what matter to God. And if you will focus on people and let God take care of the result, then you really those two focuses, sit in those two mantras. And when I have followed that, and when I've been in alignment with that, that is when I have just seen amazing things happen. When I sit in Ben's circle and I'm trying to do things on my own, right? I'm sitting in this by me mindset where I have to do it, or it has to be done by me, rather than a method of God is working through me. It's a completely different result. And what you see God do in those times and how it impacts people. And even the people we really don't realize we're impacting, right? It's the people we're friendly to at a coffee shop that may have been having a miserable day and had 5 rude customers in a row, and we come in and give them a smile and a how are you today, and it changes the outlook of their day to the point they go home and talk differently to their family, right?
Which changes the outlook of the day ahead.
Right, which does so much, and we don't realize the ability when we're working in that not in a by me, but through me, how much it's a different just flow and vibe, and we'll never know the impact, right? It's not something we ever see, but it's what we're called to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And another layer I'll add, right, just kind of going back to the question, why do we struggle so much with going to God with what we want? we kind of came up in this culture where it's like you have to really earn your way to things. And if you don't perform well, things tend to go bad. If you perform well, things tend to go good. And so we sort of developed this idea of the way we perceive ourselves a lot of times is less than. And then when we approach it that way, there's almost like this underlying shame that rides on a low level where we kind of underneath it all think, I can't really ask the all-knowing, powerful, supposedly loving God after everything I've done, right? Like there's
right. And again, you could create a whole new episode off of this, David, but
yes.
Not only is there that, but that's because when we get into that situation, right, we don't have a necessarily boldness or asking problem. We have an identity problem. Ooh. Because we're tying our identity to results, a title, a job, an income. We have an identity problem in those situations. Mm-hmm. And really that's where a lot of things stem. And that's what even makes vision tough, is when you're not centered in your identity. And that's where a lot of this has to start. Because I tell people, like, you have an identity, you have a calling, right, which is separate from that identity. And a lot of times we get mixed up with the calling being the identity, and that's not even close. And then you stroll into this idea that assignments, right, jobs, titles, whatever, are part of your identity and calling, and they're not. They're assignments. They're things that you go do for a period of time, and they're a lot of times tied to your calling, or they're tied to something that you were supposed to go do to help somebody else out. And we get lost in those, and we lose our identity. We again, and men are the worst. What's one of the first questions? What's one of the first three questions a guy gets asked? Right.
What do you do?
Right. Yeah. It's one of the first things we do.
Yep. It's what I call the identity crisis, right? Where we falsify our identity into something that we do, rather than owning the fact that our identity is more about who we are.
Correct.
Yeah, good. We might have to bring you back for another episode, Ben, to talk about identity. All right, I'm moving on before we get carried away, or we're going to have a 2-hour podcast. So moving on back to vision. So I don't know about you, but for me, I started sort of planning some of the visionary work that I've been working on years ago, and I'm still working through that stuff, right? And so what I realized, it's a long game. It's not a microwave goal set. It's a crock pot goal set, if that makes sense. And so how do we do a better job creating and setting that vision for the long game, for the long haul, and then keep moving towards it? Because it can be exhausting. It's difficult to maintain sometimes, especially when it gets hard.
Right. No, it's especially hard. And we live in a culture and a mindset, many of us, right, that it's a quick fix. And if I'm not getting there as fast as I think this person on Instagram or Facebook did it, then I must be a failure, or I must be wrong, or I must not be moving in the right direction. And so, first you have to tell yourself it's a long game, right? And that everyone is different. My results are going to be different. And when you're centered around an idea and a calling and not an assignment, when you're confident in who you are and where you're at, then the idea of a long-term vision doesn't sound crazy. Mm-hmm. And realizing that the things that you're going through now, or the season that you were going through someone was going through for 2.5 years when I was underemployed/unemployed, that it was building me up. And there were things that I was doing along the way. There were people that I was encountering that I had been in that moment assigned to go do something for, or who had been assigned to do something for me. And instead of getting caught up, I get caught up in when am I getting to the other side and getting a job or getting a better income? It's when I would sit there and focus on the people side, to your earlier point, that's when you're playing that long game. You're realizing that where I'm at today, there is something to be done. There's someone for me to impact. There's someone who's here to impact me. And it's a development process, that vision. I mean, it's going to look different in different seasons, right? It looks different when our kids are younger, but as they get older, now it's becoming this, my role as a father is, I'm still a dad to them, but now, I've got a senior in high school. She's making decisions now that are completely different. And my job's now as an advisor, it's not as the dad who was there to tell her yes or no.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to be in college in a year. She's going to decide whether or not she's going to get up and make it to class on time. It's not when she's 5 and going to kindergarten, I'm the one making sure she's getting up and getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's a progress, as you know, and you have to remind yourself of it daily. You're going to go through seasons where it's easy to get lost and drift, and it's coming back to it as much as you can and being reminded of it.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, that passion really comes from. Passion's the why. It's the why behind what we do. And when we lose sight of that why, that's usually when we start to do, I like that word, drift, right? We tend to drift from wherever it is that we had set that target or that line of sight. So it's, remember the why, like tie yourself to the people and the reasons that you began, write it down somewhere so that you can refer back to that.
Yeah. And I would tell you to write it out on the regular.
Yeah. Right. You almost have to review it. Yeah. Monthly, sometimes weekly, or even daily. Right.
Oh, I was going to say I had daily. There's times where that's daily.
Yes. I'm with you. All right. So what happens to us when we're sort of stuck in that overwhelm or the daily grind? Like what tends to happen to us over time?
You're going to feel frustration. You're going to feel tension. You know, kind of this probably almost like agitation is a good way to describe it. Of I'm sitting here. I'm not sure I'm supposed to still be here. I feel like there's some, you know, it's discontent, and there's unhealthy discontent and there's healthy discontent, and it's how are you working through it, you know? And for some people there's unhealthy ways, and so for some people there's healthier ways. But it's almost like a feeling of discontent, and knowing that there's something else, knowing that there's something bigger. What else am I supposed to do? What does it look like? And, you know, and, you know, again, it's this feeling of agitation of that there's something else, right? And when it's time to get up and move from a situation or change a situation or an outlook, you're going to basically become really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to experience serious discomfort. Like if you're supposed to move to a different city, it's going to be as uncomfortable as it can become until you get up and move.
Yeah. I've experienced that firsthand, Ben. This kind of even brings up yet another topic that we could probably get carried away with. But one thing I know you had brought up, the idea that men get lost in work as part of their identity earlier. This subject of feelings, right, is tied into that a little bit. And you're just reminding me of that as you're talking about this. But what I want to point out here is that sometimes we have this tendency to feel that, and we keep suppressing it. We keep pushing it aside, and we use this mentality about we just got to push through. We just got to push through. But like you're saying, Ben, this is an indicator light, like a dashboard on a car. When we begin to feel that tension, we begin to feel that frustration. I almost picture like an engine light popping up on a car going, you need to get somewhere real quick and deal with why that engine light's on. Otherwise, something's going to happen, right? That's kind of what I'm doing.
Well, there's that, right? But again, there's always a flip side to that, right? There's don't do rash things because the indicator light is on. That's when you really need to settle back and say, what is it that I want, or what is it that I'm being asked to go do, or what is it that this next season looks like, or, you know, why am I feeling this disconnect? Like what is surrounding, what is creating this? And, you know, again, it could be, I've been somewhere too long. It could be, you know, it could be just like, it could honestly just be, I need to open up my house and have 20 people over who are all kind of in the same boat, and we all just need to have dinner together. Right. I mean, it doesn't have to be hard things or big, huge things. It can just be there's something I'm supposed to go do, and I just need to be obedient to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that you said flip side, because there really is a flip side to everything. There's an extreme on every issue, isn't there? And so on one side, you're tucking it away. On the other side, you're going way off the deep end and making these rash decisions, right? So it's slow it down, right? That's what I'm hearing you say, slow down.
Right. And I mean, like, you know, I saw this, you know, I've probably seen it in a reel somewhere on social media. You know, growth is hard, change is hard. It's also hard to stay somewhere where you've outgrown, or it's time for you to move from. You know, choose your heart. And so again, it doesn't have to be this rash, big blow things up, but sitting where you are is going to be more painful in the long run.
Yes.
If it's time for you to move into something different.
Okay. So a few more questions as we wrap up. First thing is, what is your ultimate hope for those listening to this today?
My hope is for the people who are stuck in the daily. Encouragement that it gets better. Move in a direction that is better for you. Because again, I've been there, right, where it's like every day is the same. It's not getting any better. I'm not in a place of despair, but I'm not in a place of where, I'm happy with where I am or what's going on, or thinking that there's something better out there. And so my hope is for people who are feeling that they, start moving in a direction that's healthier and better for them. It's not, do that thing that you've been putting off. Go take a class or learn a skill or, do something different. That like momentum. I hate motivation, but I love momentum. Motivation goes away. Some days I don't have it, but momentum keeps me moving.
Yeah. I feel like it comes back to tying back to the why. I used to use the comparison between motivation and inspiration in the same way. And I would say that motivation's fleeting, but inspiration keeps reminding you of the why, so you keep going. Right?
Yeah,
it's good. If you could go back and do everything over again and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you say?
Be patient, and the things that bother you and upset you really don't matter. And this is something I've learned as a dad, right? One, if you look at studies, I think most people by the time they're 18 have heard no like 300,000 times in their life, and it's 75% of their encounters are negative. It's a no or something in a negative sense, right? And so learn to say yes as much as you can, and learn to be able to discern between the things that matter and the things that really don't matter. And will this really matter tomorrow, next year, 3 years, 5 years? And don't let it mess up what you have going today.
Yeah, sounds a little bit like don't sweat the small stuff.
Very much.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. And so how can folks reach you, and for what specific services?
So, my email is ben@givehopeproject.com. My website's there at givehopeproject.com. I do coaching and consulting for individuals who are stuck in the daily grind, who are trying to create that vision and understand it. For everybody, it looks a little different. And, but those are the big things I do with people, is really sit there and help them clarify that vision, think of that bigger, elevate that thinking and bigger picture, and really go out there and go chase those things that are impactful to them. And then hopefully allow them to go shine that light and spread that hope to the people they encounter as they go about their journey.
Awesome. Well, Ben, I want to just say thank you for joining us today and for sharing your wisdom, your insight, and some of the great topics I enjoyed. I truly enjoyed this conversation, Ben. So thank you.
No, thank you, David. It's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, again, we went in a lot of different ways. So this was a lot of fun today. Thank you.
A little noise over the loudspeaker. So one last thing I'll say to those watching or listening, right? And I've shared this before, and I know it's made an impact. The busiest, or probably the richest place, I think that's the better word. The richest place in the world is the graveyard, because that's where all the dead dreams and lost visions and all the things that you ever thought you wanted to do but never did go to die. And so we don't want to add to that, right? We don't want to add to that. And what Ben brings to the conversation is that by getting ahead of it, creating the vision, and knowing what that why is now will bring a lot of hope to yourself, but it also brings a lot of hope to those that you execute that purpose that you have for your life against, right? People are going to benefit from that. That brings hope in and of itself. Were you going to add something, Ben?
No, that's great. Thank you, David.
All right. As always, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life. Thanks again, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for listening and supporting the No Purpose Without Love podcast. If you like what you've been hearing, please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new upcoming episodes. For more information about how to start your own purpose-filled journey or to get in touch with me, you can start my online course by going to courses.beaconleaders.com, or you can email me at info@beaconleaders.com. You can also visit my website at www.davideguerreso.com. I will post these links and others in the description section of each episode as well. So until next time, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life.